A few weeks ago, I made a video covering what I thought was the best bang for your buck ThinkPad, and it's fair to say, it did pretty well. So I thought, is there any way I can make this already decent ThinkPad even better? With a few upgrades, we can transform this 7-year-old laptop into something a lot more modern and hopefully last me for many years to come. Now this idea stemmed from me stumbling upon this eBay deal, a T470p complete with an i7 7700HQ, 16GB of RAM, a 256GB SSD, Nvidia 940MX graphics, and wait for it, a QHD display. All of this for only £139, which is crazy good value. A QHD screen would be great as it offers better pixel density and clarity when viewing small objects like text, for example. Not like I ever noticed pixelated text on a 14-inch screen, but you know what? It's nice to have it nonetheless. With all this in mind, what is the goal? To max out this aging beast, of course. The screen will be the main upgrade, but it also comes with a UK layout keyboard and bigger battery, which will be great additions to this ThinkPad. The plan is to put all the best parts of the ThinkPad into one, to make the ultimate T470p. So the motherboard from the old one will be put into the new one, since the old one has the better i7 7820HQ, whereas this one has a 7700HQ, and we can easily upgrade the battery and keyboard. Let's see how all this turns out, shall we? The laptop came nicely packed in one of these inflated sleeves, which to be honest did a good job protecting it. Initial observations are what I expected. The exterior looks in good condition with minor scuffs and scratches. Opening up the ThinkPad, you're met with a UK style keyboard. Yes, I can get by with a US style one on the other T470p, but honestly I'd rather take it than not. The palm rest is in decent condition as well, and the screen looks near pristine. Overall, I'm quite pleased how everything looks so far. But will it boot up? Plugging it in and turning it on, I go into the BIOS to check if everything's as it should be, and yes, looks good. Since the laptop already has an SSD pre-installed, all that needs to be done is load a copy of Windows. The CPU in this T470p doesn't support Windows 11, so a copy of Windows 10 should do. With all the drivers installed, you can see that it in fact detects a 1440p QHD screen, which is great. Keep in mind, if I were to buy the same panel, it would be around £120 new. So this is easily the best way to get your hands on a QHD display. I don't intend to test it any longer, so let's open up this bad boy and see what it's all about. Alright, let's start off with the new T470p. This will be the one where we replace the motherboard and put the better one in. First thing to do is take out the battery and hold the power button for around 15 seconds to get rid of any excess power. Now the keyboard. This is quite daunting at first, but is relatively easy. All that needs to be done is push back the top of the keyboard to expose the screws. A flathead screwdriver works best, but be careful not to use excessive force or else you'll damage the keys. Place it into the indent on the keyboard and slowly wiggle that top layer. Now we can unscrew the multiple screws. You might need a smaller bit as these are quite tiny. The screws are capped, so you'll hear an audible click when they're undone. When they're all loose, carefully place the keyboard on the side and take out those ribbon cables. With that done, now we can take a look at the motherboard. Let's take out the battery and unscrew the back cover. Here we have the motherboard with everything connected to it. Removing the RAM and SSD first, then taking out the connectors and ribbon cables. Be careful with the display ones as they are quite finicky. Then start to unscrew all the screws you see holding down the motherboard, taking out the wireless card and fan assembly. Here we can see the i7 7700HQ and 940MX graphics. With all of that done, we can now take out the motherboard and proceed with the next deinstallation. Next, here we have the T470p, which I covered in the previous video. If you haven't watched that, I'd recommend doing so. I basically talk about the positives of the T470p and more. Anyways, the T470p here has the motherboard with the better CPU, which we want to put into the new T470p with a QHD display. The process here is the same, taking out the battery to begin with, then take out the keyboard and screws on the back panel. With all of that out of the way, it's the same process of removing the RAM, SSD, screws and cables. The thing that's different with this one is it has a smart card reader, which can be used for signing into the ThinkPad. This is mostly used by companies, but since it's in here, I might as well put it into the better ThinkPad. Not like I'll ever use it, but it's nice to have. Let's take it out to put it into the new ThinkPad. With all of that out of the way, we have two loose motherboards and keyboards. Let's start off by putting the better motherboard into the new ThinkPad. But before that, let me put the smart card reader in. Now the motherboard, screwing it down with all the cables and wires connected. This ThinkPad came with 8GB originally, let's bump that up to 24 by adding a 16GB stick. Now it's ready for some action. I'll put in the 512GB SSD in. This one originally came with 256GB, so it's technically an upgrade. With all of that completed, now it's time to fit the UK keyboard. A few screws and annoying adjustments later, it's all completed. Before screwing it all back up, let's test to see if everything's working as normal and if it recognizes the better CPU. First boot up and looks good so far. Going into the BIOS, it in fact shows the better i7-7820HQ CPU. Everything works with it going into Windows, and it does recognize the QHD display. Now that's done, let's screw it all back together and put in the bigger battery. The one I have here is a 72 Wh battery, which is 50% more than the 48 Wh it had before. This will make a big difference since these ThinkPads are power hungry. Finally, let's set up the inferior T470p. Still a good ThinkPad, but just not maxed out. Last but not least, let's fix up this bad boy. This ThinkPad will have the less powerful motherboard with an i7-7700HQ. Same process, just screwing everything back together and connecting it back to life. For now, I'll put in 8GB of RAM and 256GB storage, so it's at least functional. Testing it to see if everything works, and it does. BIOS checks out and into Windows looks good. Let's fix these two ThinkPads up and compare them. Was this whole process worth it at the end? With everything working as usual, here we have the two ThinkPads. Now, I want you to guess which one has the QHD display. If you guess the first one, you're correct. The colours on the new screen are so much better and crisp, the camera doesn't do it justice. The specs on this panel are slightly better with a higher nit count and I'd guess better colour gamut by the looks of it. A quick video comparison shows the differences, with the first one having more clarity and less latency. I'd say this procedure was worth it, and I'm not losing out on much as I can just sell the other ThinkPad for what I bought this one for. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, remember to like, subscribe and turn on notifications for future videos. What do you think about this Ultimate T470p? And is there anything else I can change to it? Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.